Hi everyone, how are you? I'm Sarah with Divine Love Healing. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Please like, subscribe, share. I would love to grow my online presence, and the more followers, subscribers, those types of things that I have on various social media outlets, the more I think cool perks and whatnot of these different outlets will open up for me. So I would greatly appreciate your support if you like what you see. I have information down below that would lead you to my Facebook page and my Instagram. I also have a couple of self-created decks. I will not be pulling cards today actually, but we'll get to that in a minute. But the information for that is down below. I also am starting to sell some various spiritual devices. So please check out my Facebook page. I'm going to be recording a video here probably after this one and detailing the different items that I have that are for sale right now and the different things and how they work. I don't have an online shop yet, but I'm working on that, so we'll see how that goes. But a couple of the things that I do have for sale, if you like ankhs, if you're drawn to ancient Egyptian culture, I know I have a past life in that. If you just love the ankh, it's a powerful symbol. This necklace has some various crystals in it as well. It's plastic, but these I'm selling for, let's see, $15.95, and I have 3 of those. I also have this awesome beacon back here. I thought he changed color, but he's just staying green, which is my favorite color, so that's fine. But I have 3 of these as well. These are $14.95. So if you have any interest in these this is the type of thing that I'm selling. I will be explaining more about that on my Facebook video. So hop on over there and have a look at it. Okay, so I am here today with a special video. Again, I'm not going to pull cards on this. This is just some guidance on angel numbers, signs, synchronicities. I have had a lot of requests for this over the years and lately and last few months, and I just, it's one of those things I've wanted to do and haven't made time. And so today it just felt like it was the right time for me to talk about it. So I have some notes here that I've taken. Obviously, I'll probably channel messages as they come through, but I want to make sure that I don't forget any of the main points, right? So if you're used to watching my videos, I usually don't have notes that I refer to, but I'll probably do that a little more often here. So this is just to give some general guidance on, why you may be seeing these repeating numbers, right? And so for me, and I think for most people, this starts, if you're at a point where you're getting inundated with numbers a lot, there's a reason. And if you're noticing it, you're supposed to be noticing it. You're not crazy. And, for mostly everybody, myself included, it is tied to, communication from the divine, from angels, from God, whatever, the universe, however you want to refer to that source. And for me, it was, when I was going through a spiritual awakening. So I did actually record a video on spiritual awakening. I think it was about 1.5 years ago now. So I'm going to put a link to that down below, because if this is resonating, you're seeing numbers, you're starting to really kind of, I don't know that there's more going on, right, than what you're being told and shown in the media, what traditional society would think, the way that we've all been raised as, right, 3D paradigms. There's more to life on Earth, and life and death, and that's it, right? If you're starting to have those thoughts, that knowing, right, definitely encourage you to check that out, okay? So most often, without a doubt, the first number that you start seeing all the time when you start noticing it is 1111. And people are like, what is that? It's a cool number, right? Because it's really, it's the only one on the clock where you're going to see 4 numbers that are all the same. 11111. So for that reason, it stands out. But you may start noticing it, you're always happening, you look at the clock without thinking and it's 1111. And so that's kind of cool. You're kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. That's interesting. But then you start getting pinged with it other places, right? So you might be watching, a football or a sports game, and you're playing with your phone or kind of doing whatever, and you just are called. You're like, I'm going to look at what's going on the screen. Boom, the countdown clock, 11:11 is left in the first quarter, and you're like, whoa. Then you're driving and you start seeing a license plate with 1111 on it, which is not a normal thing, right? I mean, most license plates would not have that on it. So why would you happen to look over and see it? And, then you start thinking, well, gosh, what are the chances that I would leave? I actually had misplaced my keys and I left 5 minutes later than I wanted to. And had I not done that, I wouldn't have been on the road at the same time and seen that 11:11, right? So there's that type of stuff that starts happening. You're like, what the heck? Why is this happening? And so 11:11 is what, is kind of known as, it's the awakening code. It is, by design, the 11:11, the numbers look like columns, look like a gateway, look like a portal. It gets your attention. Once you start seeing that, and like I was saying, you tap into it, you're going to start seeing it, everywhere. And then it's going to make you kind of, again, open up this portal, this gateway to what else, there's something trying to get my attention. What is it? And then when you start tapping into that, you're going to start getting a lot of these other numbers as well. Okay, so 11:11 it's really, what is it trying to get your attention? I mean, it could be a lot of different things, because everything is one. Everything is, there's oneness. It's energy. It's this vibration, right? But it's at first, when I started seeing it, I thought it was, my guardian angels, which it very well may have been, and it still may be to this day. But it's, the higher self, that oversoul, that connectedness, that your soul never dies. You have this physical body, and this physical body only lives, for so long, but the soul never dies. And so when you start having this realization that there's something out there, that, you're here for a reason, and you start recognizing, wow, there's a purpose here. The more you open up to that and you start having those realizations and epiphanies, the more that they're going to start communicating with you. And again, who's they? The guardian angels. It could be deceased loved ones. It could be God. It could be Jesus. It could be Buddha. Whoever you believe in. As far as a religious figure, angels. There's and it can even be people identify more with the concept of, coming from a star system, being a star seed. You might start looking into that and recognize that there's there's definitely life out there on other universes and other galaxies, and it's intelligent, and they do communicate with us, through signs, synchronicities, numbers. It's all energy. That is the one thing that is like a constant across time and dimensions. Angels, and people who have deceased, they don't have a physical body, but they still have energy. And their way of communicating to you as a human being, because they can't, sometimes you'll see, there are some people who are gifted and whether they want to be or not, and they see, they physically see manifestations of a spirit, right? But for the most part, the way that they're going to be able to get your attention is through these energetic frequencies, through these numbers, repeating patterns, coincidences, and you start questioning, going, oh my gosh, this isn't random. If I keep seeing this like 20 times, something is trying to get my attention. Okay, and this is weird because I'm getting like pressure in my third eye right when I'm talking about this. But yeah, it's that physical and non-physical reality starting to merge. You start to have this recognition that there's more going on, right? Things start to shift. Typically, there's a difficult time in your life that's either has happened or is happening or is about to happen. For me, the 11:11 started when it was back in 2013, and I had just ended a 4.5-year relationship with somebody who was, and I'm not, insulting someone, but this person did have a mental illness, and he was an emotional narcissist. And it was one of the most hardest things I've ever had to do, was to end it the second time, knowing it was for good. I hadn't fully healed from that experience, but then, 6 weeks later, I thought I'd had all this time that I was single, which is kind of a joke now because I've been single over 4 years now. 6 weeks, yeah, that's a long time. Boy, was I in for a rude awakening, huh? But anyway, I digress. So anyway, just to give you the context, so I reconnected with someone from elementary school. We had been friends, not very, very close, but we grew up in the same neighborhood. We were both in, I was in drill team, he was in band. And, of course, there's this, why weren't we Facebook friends before? This is weird. He was going through a divorce. I had just went through that, ending that relationship. So we had a lot that we bonded about. And, of course, it was the consummate story of, like, this guy who was kind of nerdy and had a crush on me, turned into this gorgeous man, and it was just like I was smitten, instantly. And so when we get together, everything happens so fast, right? We both start seeing 11:11 all the time. And so of course, here I am having kind of some doubts, thinking, maybe I haven't healed myself enough from this relationship. This is moving too fast. I don't know that I'm ready to like move in with this person as quickly. And it was so much, right? But I kept seeing 11:11. And so here I am thinking, it's meant to be because I'm seeing 11:11 and he's seeing 11:11 and we're talking about it, and come to find out, it was the start of my awakening and he was the catalyst for that. And I'll get more into that. You guys know, if this is your first time watching my videos, I share a lot about my own experiences. I'm very open about it because I want people to know that they're not alone, that I've been through a lot of these things. Like, even though I talk like, oh, I'm so happy and everything's great right now, there have been so many moments, and still there are moments that bring me to my knees and are devastating, right? But there's a purpose now. I can look back and see, oh, that's why that happened, right? Yeah, the 11:11 wasn't showing me that it was destiny and fate. The 11:11 was the start of my awakening. It was the start of, I started, I wasn't really listening to my gut anymore. And then I started getting bombarded with signs as things like started falling apart, right? I was just saying, I started, things were starting to shift in my life, right? And in a big way, for me to have this relationship come in and this, the things that I thought, it was like the perfect fairy tale, like my life is going to go this way, right? How amazing of a story is it that, two friends from high school reconnect after all these years and they fall in love and they have this, perfect relationship. And, after everything I'd been through in that emotionally abusive relationship, I just thought this thing's too good to be true. And, it was, but, it was really, it had to happen though. And I wouldn't go back and change anything because I had to have that tower, that crash, that dark night of the soul, right? But 11:11 again is a coded structure. It reactivates your remembering. Okay, so I really started, even back then, I was always into tarot and spiritual things and stuff like that. And I believed in angels and I believed in signs, but I really wasn't, really tapped into it. And the numbers, when they started coming in like that, I knew something was going on, and it just was kind of cool, right? So 11:11, you can also make a wish, okay? But I feel like it's a destiny kind of thing. And again, your perspective, you've got to keep in check a little bit, which I didn't do in the beginning, thinking, oh, I'm seeing 11:11, he's seeing 11:11, it's meant to be. This is meant to be. Well, it was meant to be. It was meant to be, because had that relationship not happened and fallen apart, I wouldn't have went through my dark night of the soul. All these things would not have happened to lead me to where I am now. So it was meant to be. It just wasn't meant to be for life, which is what so many of us get stuck on, right? When we go through these things, and it's understandable, because that's what we want. We don't want to enter a relationship or a situation and think, yeah, this is great. Like I'm doing this for about 4 years, and then it's going to end, and it's going to be really painful, but it's going to be for my greatest good. Nobody goes into a situation like that and that's what they hope for, right? So anyway, I digress. So the numbers 11:11 always usually start, right? So now going in sequential order. So 111, 111. You may be seeing that one quite a bit. That signifies new beginnings, okay? Manifestation. It is associated with the magician and tarot. Now one caveat here. Again, this is how the numbers have played out on my journey, in my experience. Okay, so you may have a different feeling that comes up, or you might see 111 always when something certain, something specific happens. For example, right? You might see 111 and then you meet someone new, or you hear from somebody that you haven't heard from in a while. So if you notice a pattern when you see these numbers, take that, right? I'm just sharing with you my experience. You can Google angel numbers with the specific numbers, and you'll find different interpretations. I mean, there's some common threads, throughout it, but whatever you feel it means for you is what it means for you. If something I say resonates, then take that. But this is not, I'm not gospel. I'm not again, just sharing my experience with it and what it means for me. So it could mean something different for you. And with that being said, there are some people who identify certain numbers, constantly associating them with the tarot, which is fine because that's how they've applied in their life. For example, we'll get to sevens. Sevens in tarot can be a challenging number. For me on this journey, 777 was always a positive number, okay? So that's the type of thing I'm trying to distinguish here. So again, 111, new beginnings, manifestation. It's kind of like this law of attraction. Don't give in to fear. And keep in mind, a 1 is starting over a cycle. It's a new beginning. It's a fresh start. So you may be in this mindset of, okay, I've just went through this ending of something, a 9, 10, whatever it is. It's just ended. So I'm stuck in this past fear, this hurt. The 1 energy, it's like, no, you're starting over. This happened for a reason. So it's kind of like looking back and it's this law of attraction of knowing, like, no, I'm not going to say, why does this keep happening? I'm going to say, what is it trying to show me? What am I learning from it? And I'm going to have this positive attitude and that I'm going to attract something better. Okay, so that's what 1s are about for me. 222 is about keeping the faith. It's about knowing that the manifestation that you made in the 1, right? It's kind of like you start seeing the 222 and it's like, okay, there's progress, right? And I've found too that, you might certainly see, like, you might see 1111, 222, 888, like in the same day. And then you might see 555. And then you might see, you might not just see like one number at a time, right? So they may have messages that go together that you have to kind of, pull together. But a lot of times for me, I would be seeing 111, I wouldn't be seeing 222 at the same time, if that makes sense. For me, the 222, it's kind of like, you've got to watch your attitude. You've got to stay positive. Keep that faith that the manifestation, it may not be here yet, but there's progress. It's coming. So 2s are also about duality. They're about partnership. They're a number about balance for me as well. But 2s, you might start getting inundated with 2s if you start having new partnerships come in. It could be friendships. It could be a romantic person. There's something there with that to look at. 333, that one for me is just one of the most powerful. When I started getting the 333 and the 3333, and sometimes I'll get them like, I can't even, like, what is, stuns me, like when I, at work and I'll open up a lease, or something, there's some kind of a document and there was a payment, an annual payment of $333,333 or something, and you're just like, what? And I have to tell you, 333 is one that didn't come on my journey until it really was a long time into my journey. I feel like I had went through my divorce when I really started noticing that one. And well, we'll get to that in a minute, but 333 for me is more associated with the Ascended Masters. Okay. And the Ascended Masters, the most, famous one that you're familiar with, I'm sure, is Jesus. Okay. Ascended Master means that these are individuals who actually lived a life on earth and they went through the spiritual ascension process to the point, right, where they, there's debate about reincarnation, about when that ended. And it, it may have ended after Jesus was, was killed. But obviously a lot of these Ascended Masters we're talking about, this is ancient history. And so they went through, learning the spiritual lessons, connecting to God, serving, ascending out of basically into these higher realms of consciousness while they were still on earth. So they became an Ascended Master, right? So that's different than a spirit guide. And, we could get into a whole nother video on that. Spirit guides basically kind of come back to teach you as a human. They don't want you to keep making the same mistakes they made. So they've kind of, agreed to come to help guide humans to not repeat the same mistakes again that they did, right? And so if they achieve their goal, right, then the guide and the human can then ascend into heaven. So that's sort of that theory. But so short story there, or short version of a long story. But Ascended Masters, 333 is especially associated with Jesus. For me, the Holy Trinity. Me being a twin flame, it's especially a profound number because it's the masculine energy that we all have within us, the feminine energy we all have within us, and the that energy being in union with God. And so for the longest time on my journey, I started seeing 333. I took that as like my physical union with my twin was imminent. And little did I know, that was back in, when did I really start seeing that? That was 2018, the summer of 2018. And I really started taking some big steps in my growth. The year before, I had actually went to a concert, and I was actually doing a lot of things with my ex-husband, traveling and things I shouldn't have been doing. And, it was just for fun. And it's like, how can you ever let anyone else come into your life, right, in a meaningful way if you've got that energy there and you're not in your own energy? So the year prior, he and I went to this concert together, and we had an amazing time. And a year later, I went by myself, and he would have come if I had said, I want you to come up here and do this. And I thought, no, I've got it in this cycle, right? And so I'm not kidding you guys. The reason I'm telling you this story is I went to dinner, and I'm trying to think, I had traveled by myself a couple of times at that point, but nothing like I've done since. And especially to go to a concert alone, that was pretty daunting, especially this type of concert. It was Hailstorm, so they're like a rock band, and the crowd's pretty wild. They've been drinking all day, and here I am alone, in Columbus, in another city. So anyway, I go to dinner alone before the concert, and I get my bill, and my total on the bill was $33.33, and I was just blown away, right? I was just like, oh my God. So again, that's just an example of really what it's about, the 333. It is like the Holy Trinity, that energy being in balance with God, but it's about finding union within yourself. And I feel like it could either, in my situation there, I think it was more the angels were kind of applauding me and rewarding me, like, yes, like you're doing this. This is so powerful that you are going by yourself. You are not you have that strength that you aren't gonna repeat these past patterns, that that your path is forward. And so we're here with you. And I know I was being protected that night and guided, right? I mean, I'd done Reiki like all around the whole premises, like before I went, around myself. And I had a battalion of Ascended Masters watch, and that's probably what they were saying, like, you're going to be safe, we've got you, right? Doesn't mean I can go out and do stupid things, but it just means like that night it was a good thing I was doing. But it's that progress, it's that and it's also a creation energy too, the 3 associated with the Empress. So 4s, moving on to 4s. 4s for me are very much tied to angels, whereas the 3s are Ascended Masters and Jesus as an Ascended Master and the Holy Trinity. 4s are angels. They've always been that way for me. They might represent something else to you, and that's okay. But 4s, I'll be driving, and you start to notice it, right? I mean, sometimes you can even ask. You can say, angels, like, I need to know you're here with me, or whatever, and then you might see a number like 1111. You might start getting pummeled with that. But I'll be, driving, and I'll have a thought, this was like, during the early stages of my journey, I would start having thoughts about, this is kind of like working through therapy in my head, right? Like, this has happened for a reason, or this XYZ has not happened yet for a reason. And it's okay because I've done this, and I know this is happening, or whatever, I'll kind of go through these scenarios in my head. And I'm not kidding you, within like 5 minutes, I'll drive, and there's a billboard that's like, a legal advertisement, and it's like, the phone number is 444-44444. And you're just like, you can't make this up, right? I mean, that's the type of thing I'm talking about, right? Another thing, and another example, when I was first going through my awakening, and again, there's a video link to that down below, that specifically, it talks about numbers, but there's definitely some other things with your chakras and some other experiences. But, feathers and coins are another thing that you'll have happen, in addition to the numbers. Okay. There are times I would be on walks. Or I would be out at a restaurant, and I would be doing that same thing either to myself, or I would have a friend there or something, and I would make a statement like, no, I know, like, this happened for a reason, and it's okay, and like, I'm on the right path. And then, like, I would look down and there would be a feather, like, right there, out of nowhere. One time out at dinner, I was sitting on a patio, but the building for the restaurant was right beside me. So there was nothing flowing here. And something hit me in the face so hard, I thought it was a moth. I was like, oh my God, a moth, like, hard. It was like and I looked down and there's a feather. It was a feather that hit me in the face right after I made this statement about, this happened because of this, and it's okay because of this. Boom. Once you start tapping in and noticing these numbers, they're going to start communicating with you, and they already are, but maybe you're just not seeing it, or you're thinking, oh, it's a coincidence. It's not. Okay. Anyway, going back to the 444, the angels, your hard work is paying off. Fours are stability, foundation. I feel like it's a protection number too. Like, the angels are protecting you, and your home, and your stability, and all those things. You're guarded, you're protected. Fives, really for me, the only numbers that on this journey, again, separate from tarot, that's a whole nother story. But the fives are the ones that, yes, in tarot and in the angel number scenario, I would kind of notice a correlation. If I would start seeing 555, fives are change. Fives signify change, and a lot of times it's a difficult change. It could be a job loss, it could be a relationship ending, just something profound happening. And sometimes it's even not, necessarily doesn't have to be a profound thing, but it's just something shifting. And it could be positive. It doesn't always have to be negative. But for me, if I would start seeing 55555, I'm like, oh no. But it didn't always mean that something bad would happen. Okay. But fives, to me, it's a breakdown before a breakthrough. It's making room for better things for you. Okay. So, I don't think I said this earlier, but the more you see of a number, the more powerful the message is. Okay, so if you see 33 a lot, you see 33 a lot, or you see threes a lot, but then you start seeing 3333, or like the example I gave you where there were a string of 6 of them in a row, that's an even stronger message. Okay, so the more often you see them and the more that are strung together, it's more powerful. Okay, sixes, the number, even though, in our traditional culture and society, we've been conditioned to believe that sixes are bad. 666 is the Satan number. It's not. It's in this situation. If you see 666, don't think, oh my God, this is like Satan communicating with me. It's not. Sixes are a number of balance. Okay. Sixes definitely tie into material issues, money. When I see sixes a lot, it can signify that something's out of balance. Okay, it can either be your energy's out of balance, like your masculine, feminine are out of balance, or something's out of balance in that you are focused too much on material things. You're focused on possessions. Maybe you're spending too much money. You're shopping too much. You're focused on external gratification. Drinking too much, so that's out of balance, right? It's a number about finding that balance within to go inward and stop focusing on external material things as your source of whatever. Okay, so I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of a warning, not a warning number, I don't want to say, but I don't feel like sixes, and I don't see those that often, but there were times, like, if I would go on a spending spree, like, buy a bunch of clothes that I didn't need, I would start seeing 6666. I feel like that's more of a, like, hey, get yourself in check type thing, versus seeing 4s, 3s, 2s, those, which the 2s could be like, keep the faith, like, hey, your attitude, watch your attitude. I would kind of notice that. But like the 3s and the 4s for me, and the 7s and the 8s, they're the ones that it's like they're rewarding you. Like, yes, like things are coming. You're on the right track type thing. 7. So moving on to that. 777. That for me is always one that I would see that you're on the right path. And it was confusing to me because it's one that really, the 2s, the 4s, and the 7s for me were the ones that really exploded on top of 1111 when I was in my second marriage, and that to the guy from school, from elementary school, and things were just crashing and burning. I would see 777 all the time. And again, I kept thinking like, there's hope here. There's encouragement, there's work. But looking back, I guess perhaps that was where the challenging aspect of the 7 was coming in, where it's like, this person is not who they, who you thought they were, in the sense of, things are just changing so quickly, where it's like, here I am wanting to work on things, and that's not it's like, where did this go? Where did this person go that had me on a pedestal? That was signifying that shift, right? But at the time, I saw the 7 as, it's going to work out, right? Well, it was a part of my journey that was working itself out to get me to the next level, right? To serve as that catalyst for awakening. So it's for me, the 7s were, your progress on your spiritual journey. You're starting to notice, you're following your guidance. Like, once you start getting the 7s a lot, it's like they're like showing you, yeah, we're communicating with you. And that's really a time too where I would ask for signs so much, and I would ask for numbers, and I would get that confirmation. So, and it's a time too, again, where, when my marriage did fall apart and I was moving, into the place I'm in now, when I was driving back and forth, and again, it was a pretty short distance. It was probably not even 5 minutes, if that, maybe 5-7 minutes around the corner here, to where I was driving back and forth and moving stuff in, right? And I don't know how many times I would see 777. I mean, constant. And so it really started to comfort me. And so I would, even though I was in, completely devastated and destroyed in a total mess, that comforted me. And it's like, they're telling you, it's going to be okay. Your life is not over. This is happening for a reason. And I'm not kidding you that, when I moved in here, this is an example, by the way, of what, these are kind of interchangeable, what I would call like a synchronicity, a sign, synchronicity, whatever. Just confirmation tied in with that 777 that I kept seeing as I'm moving in here. So I had originally lived in the same building prior to that marriage. So at the time, I was in apartment D. And what I didn't realize when I moved back in here, I obviously, it didn't matter what apartment I was in when I moved back in here, because I love my landlord. I knew that I was supposed to go back here because I knew he would take care of things, and I would feel safe. And, in this terrible time in my life, like, I wouldn't have to stress about having a shady landlord. So it was like, the apartment is available, it's fine, I'll take it, So without realizing until I'm moving in, literally, like, what my new apartment was. So apartment D was where I used to live. And the guy that I was with at the time, who pretty much lived with me there for a while, his the initial of his first name was D. And then I realized when I move in here, I'm moving into A, and A was the initial of the guy that I'm leaving, the marriage that's ending. And it just, something was so profound about that. And some people might think, well, that's silly. I remember, I think I had some family members, not my parents, but people had told my parents, like, she needs to stop focusing on signs so much. And I was just really annoyed by that. I didn't know why, but I just thought, well, this is comforting me. Like, why should I, so you might get some of that if you start telling people, oh my God, I saw this and I saw this sign, and gosh, I think this is all tied together. Like, don't be surprised if there are people who are skeptical when I just was 33, right? You can't make it up, guys. Okay. There are people that are skeptical, right? Because again, it's an awakening process. It sounds crazy. It sounds like sci-fi. Like, I'm seeing numbers and there's things communicating with me through energy. Everybody is trained, for the most part in this society, to believe one level or one type of, especially in the U.S. society, even though we're a melting pot, right? The predominant religion or whatever, belief system is the Bible and organized religion. And that, if you don't believe in that, and you're talking about things communicating with you outside of a priest, you're looked at as a witch or evil or, something like that. So again, it's the societal paradigms. People don't mean harm, but just be cognizant of that you very well might get people who try to shoot you down or shoot your ideas down, and don't listen to it. If you know that these things are happening, and especially if it's comforting you, if it's a positive experience and it's comforting you and it's helping you get through a difficult time, and you start getting more communication from angels and having these experiences. Don't listen to other people who try to shut you down. So that's a whole nother spiel. But anyway, so back to what I was saying. My prior apartment, same initial as the guy I was with at the time. I'm moving into one as I'm leaving a guy with the same initial, and I'm seeing 777. And I just thought, gosh, I know this sounds crazy, but I think this is a sign that, like, for whatever reason, I don't understand this. I don't know why. You know, at the time I was 37, it's like everything's falling apart. My world's falling apart. But I think that I'm on the right path. Like, I feel like this is a sign that, I mean, what are the chances too that an apartment, this building, there's only 4 units. There's rarely, he has long-term tenants here because he takes care of things. What are the chances that right when I need a place to go, right, that this place would open, and it would be that, you know, there would be that tie with the initial. It's like confirmation that the angels, it's like everything is going the way it's supposed to. They're helping you move into a new direction because that's what you're supposed to do, okay, even though it's painful. So that really for me was the start of my awakening, that point in time. Another example, and then we'll get back to the numbers of a synchronicity, right? You in addition to these types of numbers, you may very well start seeing, you know, somebody's birthday, your own birthday, or a significant, you know, you might see the, you know, your wedding anniversary, on the clock all the time, you know, or license plates or things like that. Something that's very significant for you. And you may not even know what it is yet. So I would recommend too, like, if you're not sure why, you know, why do I keep seeing, you know, for me at the time, like I used to see 913 all the time. I had no idea what it was. It was actually one of my ex's birthdays. And I thought, why would I be seeing that? Well, come to find out, you know, when you look at that number what is about, the combination of those, which you can search, by the way, a random, like, it doesn't have to be 1111, it can be 512, and you see that one all the time, and there you know, are explanations out there for that. But for me at the time, I was getting inundated with 913 because it was talks about serving in your spiritual mission, serving in your divine life purpose. And guess when it kind of stopped? It kind of stopped when I started my business and when I started my YouTube channel. And I actually started doing things besides thinking, oh, I'm just supposed to, like, play with tarot cards, and I'm actually supposed to do this and help people, right? So you may not know what it means at the time, but keep a journal, because, you know, 6 months, a year after, you might say, oh my gosh, that's why I was seeing that number all the time. So very, very cool stuff. Oh, but so anyway, just an example of the craziness that happens, right? So I mentioned earlier that I'm a twin flame, and I'm telling you, like, I can't, like, his birthday constantly still to this day is everywhere. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's license plates. It's, you know, I open real estate documents for work, you know, constantly I'm reviewing leases and recorded covenants and restrictions and things like that. And I don't know how many have that number sequence in them. And I'm just like, oh my God, right? And I try not to, I don't even look for it. It just jumps out at you because you see it all the time. So when I drove to Maryland, and I hadn't started my business yet, but I was getting Master Reiki training, and it was helping give me confidence, because I had, you know, hadn't been awakened that long. And I remember getting to the condo, and that I was renting from someone, and I pull up next to a car. I get out, and there was 7. Well, actually, let me backtrack. When I went to get in the rent, I rented a car because I was driving to Maryland, and my car wasn't sure it was reliable to do that. And I rented a car, and I get in the car to leave, and the odometer was at 777. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is a good sign for me to drive the longest I've ever driven by myself, right? So anyway, I get there, and then I see 7, and then the 2 day, like his birthday, the twins' birthday. And I'm like, okay. And then I about died because the guy comes up and hands me the parking pass for my car, and it was the year he was born. It was 8/7, and I was just like, okay, so literally I'm standing here, 7/7, boom, boom, his birthday and the year. You know, you can't make this stuff up, and it's not like I'm looking for it. It's just like, boom, right? So those are the types of things that when you start having them happen and you can't explain it, you know, you're not crazy. They're trying to get your attention for a reason. Okay, so back to the numbers again. 888. 888 is all about abundance. It is all about money, your life purpose, when you start seeing eights, like it could be that, maybe that you need to start trying to manifest abundance. But for me, the experiences I've had is when I see eights, it's like, it's coming, it's on its way. Like, I'll never forget, I was in the cafeteria at work, and I happened to be eating a little bit later of a lunch that day than normal, which is odd, right? Already. So it's one of those. And so I'm at the microwave, and I walk over, I don't know, I was getting a fork or something. And this guy like walks by, and I think it was a contractor or something that was there. Cause I don't know why he would have had, cause we can't really wear t-shirts, in the office like that. In the back of his t-shirt, it had like 1-888-88 something, like a phone number with a bunch of eights on it. And I was like, that's weird. Like, I wonder, like, but that's weird, but that's really cool. Like, I've not noticed that many eights before. I'm not even kidding you. Like, within an hour of that happening, I'm in my office, and my boss comes in, and she was like, I have some amazing news. She's like, you're getting a bonus. It was for this deal I had worked on. Like, it had closed. This was, I think, in April of whatever year it was, and that deal had closed in like November the year before. And it wasn't a ton of money, but I think it ended up being almost, I think it was like another paycheck. Like, it was basically another paycheck. Like, it's like you weren't expecting anything. You see all these eights, and then boom. Like, does that always happen? No. I mean, I've seen eights and had nothing happen, but it's just stuff that it's like maybe you're protected, and you don't even realize that they're protecting you financially in some way, if that makes sense. Or maybe an opportunity is going to come in for you to make more money, or to meet somebody who's going to lead you to another opportunity that way. Also, 8 is the infinity. Like, this keeps, like, the stupid shirt keeps coming up, but it's the infinity symbol. So for me, most of the time when I would see the 8s, other than that one experience, I would take it as a reminder that your soul is infinite, right? And an infinite bond between not only twin souls, but just the oneness of all things. So just a beautiful number. Nines can be a little bit challenging. Nines represent typically ending a cycle. Something is closing. For me, nines are also, they're a number of solitude. So if you're seeing 999, something I didn't realize looking back, a lot of times nines could be like, you really need to kind of go in hermit mode. That's tied to the tarot. You need to focus inward. You need to go close out stuff that's not serving your greatest good. That's like this external, like you just need to focus on you. 919 is another one. Very, like, mirroring numbers are very powerful too. If you get a 1 in the middle, if it mirrors, if you get like even like a 727 back and forth, you could be mirroring someone else, especially if you're in a twin flame dynamic or a sacred partner, something like that. That's a sign you're mirroring each other. But in general, nines, ending a cycle. Interestingly, 1111, when I started seeing that, and when, my husband was seeing it, we were dating at the time, and we both were seeing 9/11 as well, which we thought was odd, because we're like, why are we being reminded of September 11th? Well, it wasn't. It was, you might really start, once you start seeing 11/11 and other combinations, 3/11, 4/11, 7/11, which I see all the time, which is really ironic now that looking at things that are happening in my life, I'm like, why was I seeing that all the time? But 9/11 is a big one. And I think for me, maybe it was kind of like closing out. It was like this last cycle of like doing this again with like a relationship that isn't, and again, both of us, I'm not pinning it on him. We both had toxic aspects of us because of our negative programming, our wounds, our unhealed wounds, and we weren't in a conscious relationship. We were unconsciously attacking each other because of our own fears, own insecurities, own unhealed things, right? And so that's what happens. And so for me, looking back, it's kind of like the 911, I think, was kind of like, well, number one, it's like, hello, like red flags, that you're going down this path too fast and you know it. But also it's like this ending of like, it's this last time that you're going to do this. And this normal, like this, it's like this awakening that like things are shifting. And once this relationship ends, like you're never going to go back and do that pattern again, right? So 999 for me is like trusting that better things are coming. 1010 is another one that it's similar to the 9, but for me, the 10 is a much stronger, right? The 9 is kind of like something's in the process of ending. It's something that maybe you need to actually take that step to walk away from it and say that you need to be in your own energy, right? To close that out. It can be painful. And it's about that self-love and trust and loving yourself enough to do that. 10s for me is kind of like it's already happened, right? You have like actually closed that door, and it's akin to me like to the Wheel of Fortune and tarot. So it's like movement forward. 10-10 is like just boom. It's like things are shifting. You've closed that out, and you are ready to go on to the next cycle. For me, it's definitely tied to like negative patterns too. Not even necessarily. I mean, it could be tied to people, but it's like, all right, now, okay, I've chosen myself. I'm in this solitude. I'm ready to move forward. But then it's that time to go in and say, all right, yeah, you've went inward, you've done all this stuff, but like now have you really looked at within you and seen what these patterns are, how you're mirroring the things you're attracting, are mirroring back to you, which is very powerful. So the last one is 000. And I've only seen this one a few times. And it's, I mean, and it was one I was getting inundated with. You can't even make this up. Like, I noticed it at work, probably pulled up a document or something, and there was like a ton of zeros, and I was like, that's weird. And then I get a phone call later in the day, and it was like restricted number. But usually when it says restricted number, it just says restricted number. It had 000-00000, and I'm like, and that was calling me. And so of course I didn't answer it. Part of me is like, maybe I should have, just to, I'm sure it was on my work phone, so I get so much spam on that. But there was no message left or anything like that. And so I started looking it up, and really it's like things coming full circle. And I think at that time there definitely was something that had happened. You may start seeing animal totems too. That's a whole nother discussion. But around that time, that things were coming full circle. I think my first husband, I had a dream about him. I was having reoccurring dreams about him and kind of some guilt that I had in that situation. And I had a very powerful dream with an owl in it. And owls are associated with death, not necessarily in a death of an actual physical death, but death of a situation, closing out a situation, for example. And I'm not kidding you, like he happened to text me. Like that morning I woke up after having that dream about the owl. I was seeing the 000 around that time, I'm pretty sure. And he texted me a random picture of us that he'd found, years ago. We're talking like 20 years ago. And we ended up having this conversation that it just flowed to where I was able to kind of like let him know, kind of just this closure kind of thing, like that there's nothing that he did wrong, or because I was kind of feeling like, I wonder if he had days where he would, if only he had done this or said this or not said this, like would things have been different? And I wanted to assure him that like the path, like we're on specific paths, and everything had to happen the way it did, and there's nothing would have changed it, nothing, because we weren't meant to stay together. And it was just such a profound conversation, right? So 000, I mean, that's something that you're talking about. I feel like a very profound energy, a very profound something coming full circle. It's also that you're really starting to connect to God and your higher self, and like I feel like look at things from a higher perspective, if that makes sense. It's a oneness. It's just it's a beautiful, beautiful number. So let's see. I think that's all of them. As you can imagine, since we went already 48 minutes in, that there's a lot here. I just was scratching the surface of what the depth of what these numbers can mean, and when you start to put it all together, it's really quite amazing. So I would just suggest that you pay attention to your dreams, you pay attention to the numbers you're seeing frequently. I mean, and you'll know the difference. If you're like, gosh, I really hope I see 3-3 today, and then you're like, or, sometimes, for example, I would go out on a walk and I'm like, I really hope I find a feather today. I want to find a feather. And it's like the more you focus on it, it doesn't happen, right? It's those moments where you're just lost in like the moment and joy, or just having these thoughts about something, and then it's like, boom, a feather's there, right? You can't force it. You have to just allow it to come to you. And then animals, and if you see something on Facebook about a spider, and then you find a spider, okay, I don't want to use that as an example, or an ant, let's say, all right, you see an ant on Facebook, you find an ant, wanting it inside, and then you're outside and you have one crawl over your toe or something. Like, okay, that's kind of a repetitive thing. So just start to pay attention, because everything is communicating with you always, okay? And once you start to tap into that energy and those messages and know that there's so much love and support and guidance that's there for you, it really does change your life. It really does change your life when you start to realize that everything is happening the way it should be. And even if it makes no sense now, if it's terrible and hard, and there's guidance there. There's so much more that is available for you to help you make sense of what's happening, if that makes any sense. So, but if you need help making sense of what is coming in for you, okay, if you want to talk about your experiences, if you're seeing certain numbers, if you're seeing certain symbols, signs, totems, we can certainly talk about those things. We don't have to pull cards in a session with me. We can just have a chat like this about the awakening process and what you're going through. Is this normal? What does this mean? Your session with me is completely customizable. So if you would like to book a session and learn more, see down below. So thank you so much for your time today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care.